Hi guys, my name is Javed and today we will discuss about JUnit 5 Jupyter. It's a kickstart guide. Okay, so today we will cover these 3 points: why we need a testing framework, what is JUnit, and what is JUnit 5 Jupyter exactly. So let's move on. So first, the questions keep in mind why we need a testing framework. Suppose you are building an applications, okay, in Java, and you need to create a test cases, and you need to test that applications from your own, okay. But manually you can do it, but it's take a lot of time. It takes a lot of iteration to handle the test cases. It takes a lot of inputs. It takes a lot of dependency to create a complete testing from your applications. So suppose you decide to develop your own testing framework. So what will happen? So there are some certain things you need to keep in mind, like you need to prepare for the test framework. You need to provide some input, okay. After that you have to run that test cases. You need to provide some expected output to verify the result. So what are the inputs and what are the output? Based on that you need to verify the result, and after verifying that you need to alert developer. You need to do something to alert the developer if test case is failed. So there are a lot of things you need to keep in mind, okay. But what if you are using a JUnit testing framework? So there are only 3 points, 3 concerns you have to keep in mind. You have to prepare for the test cases, provide the input, and provide the expected output. That's it. Rest of the test points, rest of the things, you need to just keep it in for JUnit. It will automatically run the test. It will automatically verify the result. There are a lot of inbuilt functions in present JUnit. So by using that functions you can verify the result, okay. And it will automatically alert the developer if test case is failed. Okay, so let's move on to the next point. What is JUnit? So basically JUnit is a testing framework. So this is the Wikipedia definitions. For the Java programming language, JUnit has an important in the development of test-driven development and is one of family of unit testing framework, which is collectively known as XUnit and originated from SUnit. So let's talk about JUnit. So JUnit, it's nothing but a jar, okay. It will used at the compile time, okay. So it's a fat jar. We can say it's a fat jar. Why I'm saying a fat jar? Because it has a lot of testing framework included in that jar, okay. So it is a huge jar as a size, and you have to include that jar in your applications. If you are not using that full features of JUnit, but still you have to include that jar in your application. So now the latest version, the latest framework came, that is a JUnit 5, which is under the package of Jupyter, and previous JUnit 4 and JUnit 3 was under the packages JUnit and JUnit framework respectively. So this is a basics of JUnit. Now let's move on to the JUnit 5. So what is JUnit 5? So as I told you, JUnit 3, JUnit 4 is a one single jar which you have to import in your applications, and by using that jar at compile time you can run your test cases. So now what JUnit 5 has different from the previous JUnit 4? Okay, so JUnit 5 has introduced some different modules like JUnit platforms, JUnit Jupyter, and JUnit Vintage. So these are the jars. It's a jar. It's all of the jar, okay. So what these different jar doing? JUnit platform, it's an test engine framework, okay. So it has ability to launching testing frameworks on the JVM, okay. So it's an platform engine which will run your program on the console launcher in the JUnit perform suite engine, okay. And JUnit Jupyter, JUnit Jupyter, it's a combination of a new programming model and extension model. So it's a new programming model as I say. It has a supported of Java 8 features. It has a lot of new features supported. It has a lot of new programming supported model which is present in the JUnit Jupyter jar. And also we can say it's an extension model. Extension model means we can use a custom test cases. Suppose you don't want to use the inbuilt APIs, inbuilt functions from the JUnit, then you can write your own test cases on another third-party libraries, and you can add those third-party libraries in JUnit Jupyter by using this extension model. So this is a JUnit Jupyter basically. And JUnit Vintage, it's a simple like it's a test engine. So suppose in your existing applications, okay, you have used JUnit 3 and JUnit 4 best test cases. Okay, so that time JUnit Vintage jar, it's come in a picture to run your old test cases. But there are some limitations. It requires a JUnit 4.12. So whatever you have developed your own test cases, it requires JUnit 4.12 or later to be present on the class path. So that means it requires JUnit Vintage library. It requires JUnit platform library. Okay. And also it requires JUnit 4.12 on your class path. So this is a vintage jar. Now let's move on to the JUnit 5 architecture. So this is a diagram of JUnit 5 architecture. Here we can see in blue rectangle, these are the test APIs, JUnit 4.12 for vintage, JUnit Jupyter API for a new programming model, and extension of the program, extension test cases like custom test cases. And there are other tests. This is the third-party library, custom APIs and custom engine, which it will run your custom test cases onto the JUnit platform. And from the platform components, so these are the platform components we can say. So it is a JUnit platform component. It has a JUnit engine, platform launcher, console, plugin. A lot of APIs, lot of extensions are there. So this is a basic JUnit 5 architecture. So I have noted down some bullet point to remember JUnit 5 Jupyter. So basically JUnit 5 Jupyter, it's a multiple small jars like microservices we can say. It's a flexible API. It has Java 8 features like I said before. It has support of Lambda expressions and stream APIs as well. It has supported extension points which is not supported in previous JUnit 4. Extension points means it has supported custom APIs, third-party libraries, third-party jars. So for whenever you are building a new application, and for that application you are developing a new test cases with a JUnit 5 Jupyter, then you only needed two jars. One for a JUnit 5 platform jar and second one is Jupyter jar. That's enough. But if you have already developed your applications on old JUnit libraries by using 4 or 3, so that time you must have to include a vintage jar as well. So JUnit 5 platform jar, JUnit Jupyter jar and vintage jar. So these are the bullet points which is you need to remember about JUnit 5 Jupyter. So this is the quick start guide from myself to cover the basics of JUnit 5 Jupyter. Thanks for watching this video.